The topic for today is first aid, and first aid first. What in the world would we want immediate first aid first above all things? And today I'm going to talk about first aid with the things that hurt the most. Oh, it's not the finger. It's not the Band-Aid. Oh, it's not even the gouge on the arm. First aid for the things that hurt the most. Have you ever felt that you really needed to take care of yourself first? Have you ever heard, no, you got to take care of yourself first, and then you can help other people? Have you ever felt that you really need to get your act together first? Have you ever felt totally vulnerable, totally naked, and you got to run for cover and take care of yourself first? So that's what we're going to be talking about, first aid first. A lot of people have said, and even quoted the Bible, love your neighbor as yourself. And what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that you are really first and you got to take care of yourself first? Can you really reach out into a river and help someone if you're in the middle of the river and also going along with the flow? People say, no, you've got to be up on higher ground and really secure, and then you can reach somebody else and help. Or when we get on an airplane, first put on your mask and tighten it, and then go and help somebody else. So perhaps that's the conflict that we have, that everything around us tells us we got to take care of ourselves first and then help others. Well, then what's the problem? If everybody agrees on that, and that's the way things really are, why doesn't it work? Aren't we not made to watch out for number one first? Our reflexes, everything is to take care of our body first. Maintain the way everything is functioning, homeostasis. Take care of me first, and then take care of other things, other people. Well, what happens is that along the way there comes conflict, because we really want love. We don't want to be just to ourselves. We're taught way back since the beginning, maybe when we were 2 years old, share. What parent wants their child to grow up selfish? We've got to share. We got to give. Later on, it's not just sharing. Sharing is really easy because we don't lose anything. We're just sharing it. They're not going to take off with it. We still have it. We're both using it. We're both having it. So we really don't lose. We're just sharing. That's the first thing that we learn in our terrible twos, that we're going to share. And parents sound so nice when they're teaching their child, you got to share. And then we got to give. It starts maybe around 5 or so. We got to wait, because we got to wait for our turn. That means we're giving somebody else their chance. And when we're giving, we are not having. It seems like one or the other. If we are generous and we're giving, we are not having. And we learn that we got to be able to just take what we want and give it to somebody else. And that is still voluntary, and it's okay, but it's a little harder, isn't it? but because we're learning to love. Because sometimes we like to receive too. And who's going to give to anybody who's just a Scrooge and just out all to themselves? Well, no. So we learn, okay, I'm going to give, but there's a reason, there's an agenda, there's a hidden motive, there's a big carrot. Especially around Christmas, we spend a lot of money giving and giving because we're going to get. And oh, how awful it'll be if I spent all my money and then I didn't get any gifts. So yes, we learn to give with the hope that we're going to get back. And a lot of people grow beyond their 5-year-old time and into their teens and into their early 20s, and they're very, very nice, and they're loving, and they're doing more than sharing. They're actually giving because you're going to get in return. Somebody is going to love you and also give. And we get into the time when we want to get married, and we think that we're going to have a person there. We're going to find a person. We're going to choose a person that always wants to give. Well, there's a woman, somebody that will protect me, somebody that will love me, somebody that will provide all the time. What a wonderful thing to just have somebody there to just give to me. And sure, I'll give too. I'll do my part and I'll give. And how nice if it can be an exchange. And better yet, if it's an equal exchange. And when we're in our 20s, mid-20s, 30s, 30-somethings, somehow a line appears right down the middle. And it's like, well, I'll come 50%. I'll give this much if you will give this much. I'll meet you in the middle. And we think, as long as we each do an equal amount, we'll meet you in the middle. I'll do my part, you do my part. I'll be willing to give as long as I get just as much in return. And by the time the kids come around, it doesn't go that way. The baby doesn't give for all that mommy is giving, especially when it comes to sleep time. And the playing field is not equal. The child does not give and bring as much to the parent. And that's okay. Somehow mothers manage, and they're going to understand that the baby just can't. But after all, the mommy is getting a lot by having that baby, loving it, taken care of. But then there's daddy, and he's not spending as much time caring for that baby. Somehow, daddy also has to pull in some hours there during the night. But with children, we seem to be able to let it go. And many parents think, well, just until they can sleep through the night, just until they can walk on their own, just until they can eat for themselves, just until they can learn for themselves, just until they go to school, just until they graduate from college, just until they get a job, just until they're out on their own. And then the playing field doesn't seem fair. And there's a conflict. Or the easiest is with the children. But when it's on the job, and one person feels they're doing a lot more than 50%, and there's a boss that doesn't understand, but the boss controls the circumstances. The boss doesn't understand. The boss is not there doing one's job and the playing field is not fair, or the relationship. And so you come into a conflict because the sharing, the giving now becomes sacrifice. The sharing was easy. The giving was doable because you're going to get in return. But the sacrifice, who's ever heard of getting a big reward with sacrifice? Isn't it giving everything and you get nothing? Isn't it giving until it hurts? Ouch! And you get nothing? We don't talk that much about sacrifice because it's a bad thing in our culture. Sacrifice comes into the realm of inflicting pain on yourself because we're the ones that are doing the giving to the point that it hurts. So we're causing that hurt upon ourselves. And that's self-inflicted pain. And self-inflicted pain has a nasty name, a nasty label that we all want to avoid. Masochism. Yuck. No, I don't want to be a masochist. And neither do I want to demand that from anybody. That's inflicting pain on somebody else. And that kind of giving is not fun anymore. But some people still want to do it. Either because they're the parent and they're going to get their child through all the difficult years, or because they're the spouse and they're going to stay there in the relationship no matter what it takes, no matter how much it hurts, or because it's the job and one doesn't see other options. But all of this sharing that was nice to do that we learned back when we were 2 years old, it's not fun anymore because there's not enough. The resources are not enough. There's a conflict. And when it gets beyond the willful giving, the willful sharing, the willful sacrifice, then what do we do? What do we call it? What does it look like when it's being taken away? It's being ripped away. It's stolen. We call it abuse. Whether it's rape or whether it's any kind of abuse. And that is not a pretty picture. When you end up feeling like the victim, like the person that was just ripped apart and it was taken away from you, that somehow we cannot turn it around in our minds and say, okay, that was sacrifice. No. Sacrifice, we were still willing. But theft and rape and abuse, no, we were not willing. Well, what do we do? Those are the circumstances that many, many people face. We have a hard time sharing and giving and sacrificing, and we have an impossible time dealing with what's taken away from us. So, we mature. We cope. We deal. We deal with the situation, and we'll look for help. And this is where first aid comes. Whether it's with the psychologist, with the counselor, with the pastor, with the neighbor, with the self-help on the internet, wherever. And we learn that because we don't have everything to give, and there's a conflict of how much to give and how much do I need, and I need something for myself. Because before I can give, I need to be on higher and safe ground. So we set boundaries. We're going to continue to relate. We're going to continue to share and give and maybe even sacrifice. But we're going to determine and we're going to set an amount of how much we can give, how far we can go, how far we will go, and how far somebody else can come over. And we set up a boundary. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever been told you got to set boundaries? Why, even the ocean has boundaries. And the ocean obeys, except when we have tsunamis. And then that's not good, because then everything gets wiped out. But we feel that we're going to set up boundaries. And with boundaries, who makes up the boundaries? Well, we do. Because we're the ones that are doing the giving, and we're the ones that know how much we have to give. And we're the ones that have to tell the other person, this is as far as I can go. And this is as far as you can come, and no more, because I have set a boundary. And please, you stay over there, and we will function just fine as long as you understand that you will go no further, because I cannot give anymore. So boundaries sound really nice, but boundaries have expectations. I expect the other person to only come this far, and I expect myself that I can come up with as much as I say. And then those expectations have to be enforced. Those expectations become demands. No, I said, this is as far as you can come. And now I'm going to enforce that. And I'm going to be firm. I can give this much, but here I'm not going to negotiate. That's as far as I go. And if it's not followed through, then we have to say no. No more. And then we reject. And then we push away. And then push comes to shove. And then we have separation and breakdown, and then we're alone. How many times do we find ourselves in this situation? And then we need first aid. First aid first. Where did I go wrong? What happened? Why didn't my boundaries work? Was I not aware of my limitations? Was I giving too much? Was I expecting too much? Were they demanding too much? Why couldn't we communicate? I like to propose that sometimes we are negotiating with what we're going to give, what we're going to share, with things that we don't have, or things that are not currency. They're not to be dealt with in that way. The things that we really need that we cannot share, are there things that we really have to have that cannot be taken away, that cannot be bought, that cannot be sold, that are not currency? I like to propose to you today to entertain the thought that there are those things that cannot enter into our wheeling and dealing, and that when we do try to share them and give them and take them and for whatever carrot we have or whatever we want to get in return, that's where we get into trouble. It's no problem to be generous and to share. It's what we are trying to share. It's what we are trying to take. Okay. Let's look at the things that we do have that we need, that nobody can take away, and that we want the most, but we fear that they're going to be taken away, or that we only have a certain amount and we can't give it all away. And a lot of people will say, well, that is love. We all want love. But we think that we can give love. We can share. And we do expect to have love in return. Can we use love as a human currency to wheel and deal with, to withhold and to give, and to measure it, to dish it out? I would say that love is not one of those things. I will propose to you that love is not ours. We don't have love within us to give. Oh, we can do nice things. We can do favors. We can say nice words. But love by nature is the state of being unselfish. And we are not cut out to be unselfish. That's another thing that I want to propose to you today. We as human beings, by nature, are not unselfish. We're all geared up to think of ourselves first. When we're first born, everything has to revolve around us. There's nothing that we can do for other people. Everything revolves around us. We are totally, utterly vulnerable. And the first thing that we learn to do is we learn to suck. We learn to take. Any normal baby who is thriving and getting along just fine, the first thing they learn to do is to take, suck. And it's taking from an outside source and coming in towards me. That's what we did. Whether it was from our mothers or from a bottle, but we were receiving, we were taking. And we were vulnerable for 1 year and everything was done for us. Nothing was demanded out of us because we couldn't. And what was going on in our brains as everything was done for us? Whether we were burped, whether our diapers were changed, whether we were swaddled and wrapped around and kept warm, whether we were loved, whatever it was all done to us. Were we learning to give? No. We were made to take. We were made to be dependent. All other animals, they're up and going about their way pretty much right after they're born. But even the largest mammals and elephants and others, they're way ahead of human beings. They get going before the human being does. So, who set it up this way? Why is it that way? And it's not just from our environment and the way that we're cared for. It's the way that our body works. Our senses, our reflexes, they're all set up and geared up to let us know what's not working for us. There's nothing in us that is set up as a gauge, not our temperature, not our thirst, not our hunger. Nothing is set up to let us know how the other person is doing. Everything is set up to let me know how I am doing and what I need. So it's not natural for us to be thinking about the other person and to be thinking about the other person's needs first. It's not natural. So what in the world can be expected if this is how I'm made, I am made to look out for number one first. What's the problem? Is that we want other people to turn around, and instead of looking at themselves first, we want them to look at us. We want love. We want understanding. We want affection. And all of the things that we receive during the first year of our lives, we want them the rest of our lives. And it's proven, if we get it, we thrive and we do well. And if we don't, we go out after it and fight for it. So we're caught up in this dilemma. Somewhere along the line, somebody started telling us that we have to share and give and sacrifice. But we're not made for that. It costs and it hurts. So to love, it's hard. It really is. To be unselfish, to put other people's needs first, it quickly gets into the realm of sacrifice. And that causes pain. So I'm going to take the L word and put it out of the scope of what we need, that we can have, that nobody can take away from us. What can I have? What do I really need that somebody else isn't going to control, that I'm not dependent on somebody else to give it to me? What do I have? Who am I? What am I? So that I don't have to be protecting and wanting and setting boundaries for. I'm going to propose to you that you are the most important person. You have you, and I have me. Well, that sounds very selfish, doesn't it? That sounds very, very, very heady, very, very self-centered. But let's take a look at it. Here is a word. Individuality. That's a big word. Do you know what individuality is? That's you. That's who you are. How does that work? Can somebody take your individuality away? Wait a minute, is individuality more important than my human rights? My inalienable human rights? My freedom? My peace? My love? Oh, but all those other things people can take away, people can manipulate, people can use them as currency. So what is individuality? When we were born, totally vulnerable, totally dependent, we already came with individuality. All human beings created in the image of God, and that's all human beings. I propose to you to believe that all human beings were created by God in His image. And being in His image included individuality. To this day, we can't really set up the genetic code and pick and choose these genes and this and this and that and make the human being that we want. Oh, we now understand, we now can identify the entire human genome. That means all the genes, how all the chromosomes, what all the genes are in these chromosomes. And even zygomatic twins are not identical, even though they have the same genes. The minute they're born, because they're not both in the same place at the same time, they may be in the same environment, but they're not inside each other's skins. They are in two different places. And once you have in the three-dimensional world two people in two different places, they're going to have a different point of view. Everything is going to be slightly different. And the minute people start relating to us and interacting with us, nothing is exactly the same. So our genetics, even though they're the same as somebody else's, our environment and our genetics is going to produce something different. So we're going to always have a different point of view, a different point of perspective that's going to influence how our genetics function and how we're going to perceive and experience the world. But our individuality is more than that. Our individuality has to do with not only the phenotype, the way that I look, and how people are going to react the way that I look, and what I've come with. It has to do with the talents that I have, how I'm going to process, how I'm going to experience. I have a tongue, you have a tongue, other people have tongues, but we don't have the same taste buds. We have sweetness, sour, bitter, and salty. But you combine those and food tastes a lot better than just one of those fours. Combine them and we have the plethora of flavors, and we have our favorite ones. So even just to begin with one sense, we don't all taste things the same way. Not everybody sees the same colors just the same way. Not everybody feels things. Not everybody is wired in their body in the same way. So even if we were in the same place, we are not going to experience our environment the same way, and we're not going to process it, we're not going to think about it the same way, and we're not going to express ourselves the same way. We are all different. We have this marvelous individuality. That means we have something new and different to bring to the table wherever we go. And it's just as valid as somebody else. I take great comfort in knowing that God wanted it that way. He likes this diversity. Along with individuality, God gave us the ability to think. And with everything that we can do to think, as we think about what we see, as we think about what we feel, what we hear, what we taste, what we smell, as we process all that, we can make our minds up about it, how it suits us, whether we liked it, whether we didn't. And we can choose. Now, we can't always choose what we can get from our environment, what we're going to choose, whether I like this flavor or that. We can't. But we can always choose what we think. Thank God that other people can't see our thoughts, can't look into our thoughts, can't hear our thoughts. Our thoughts are part of our individuality. They are our very own. We can share them only when we feel like it. But we have them, and they're going on right now in here. No matter what you tell me, no matter what I see, I can choose what I'm going to think about it. That is part of my individuality. No one can force me what to think. No one can force me. What I can choose in my mind, you'll never know unless I choose to express it and to share it. But you can't take it away from me. You cannot take my individuality away. No matter how much you try, you can take my life away. But you cannot have me alive and take my individuality away. Many people try. Many people try to make automatons. Many people try to have everybody dress the same, study the same, do the same. But it really isn't. It is not the same. So I have individuality that God gave me because He set up the circumstances so that there's nobody just like you and there's nobody just like me. And He gave me the power to think, and nobody gets to see my thoughts. And I can choose what I'm going to think. And then we have the power to act. Choosing is an action. Choosing is a mental action. So, since nobody can take that away, why not develop that? Get to know it, get to understand it, and get to appreciate it. And first, for ourselves. Time we can share. But we run out of it. We get some more the next day. Resources, money, we can share, but we run out of it. And we may not get some more. But my individuality, there is no limit for me to understand what I have and how to develop it. My choices that I can make in my mind, there is no limit. I can choose. So those things are God-given. That is the me. And I don't have to fight. I don't have to set boundaries for you to come here no more. You're not going to take these many thoughts away from me. You're not going to take away my individuality. There's no boundary. I'm not going to run out sharing it and giving it. That is for me to take. So first aid first. When we're in the conundrum of giving and taking and sharing and uncomfortable and boundaries and you're not going to have and only this far, first aid first. Focus on appreciating, on developing, on enjoying, on getting to know better what no one can take away. Your individuality and your power of choice. For the Christian, I'd like to share with you a psalm written by King David. There is someone that does know your thoughts. There is someone that knows everything about you. There is someone that was involved in picking out your genetics. And that's the Creator. And I'd like to read from Psalm 139. Here is someone that is always with you. O Lord, you have searched me and you know me. What kind of interest, how wonderful it is to have someone be really, really interested in you, that they have searched you. And the result, they know you. You understand me, my thoughts from afar. And you comprehend my path and my lying down. Isn't it wonderful to have somebody that knows what you've been through, where you've come from, what you've seen, what you have experienced, what you felt. They know your path. They know where you come from. And you are acquainted with all my ways. For there is no word in my tongue. But behold, O Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged me behind and before, and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. To have somebody that's always been with you, that has had their hand over you, to recognize you've never been alone. It's high. I can't attain it. Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend into heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me. If I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be a light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide me from you. God can see us in the darkness, in the literal darkness, in the darkness of our lives. He can see us. But the night shines into day, and the darkness and the light are both alike to you. Doesn't matter to God. He can see us in the daytime, in the light. He can see us in the best parts of our lives. He knows us. He can see us in the worst parts of our lives, when we think we're not ourselves. He knows us. You have formed me in my inward parts. You've covered me in my mother's womb. When we were developing, when we were conceived, when that sperm was going to connect with that ovum, when those genetics were going to be set up, God was there. He was guiding. He was involved. So I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your individuality is precious. It's valuable. It's wonderful. You were fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows it very well. So if you just think that God made such an awesome situation, that you have individuality and there is nobody like you, and God wants that, and God values that. One of my favorite verses comes from Jeremiah 29, verse 11. God says, I know the plans that I have for you. And they are good plans. They are plans to give you a future, and a good one, a future of prosperity. And another one of my favorite verses is in John 14, verse 1 through 3. God says, Jesus says, don't worry. Don't worry. Don't let your heart be troubled. You know what? Believe in God. Believe what the Bible says. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If it weren't so, I wouldn't be telling you this. Now, I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go, I'm going to come back. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to take you unto myself because I want you. So that wherever I am, you may be also. And that's why he made you so fearfully and wonderfully. That's why he made you with that individuality. He wanted nobody else like you. He set up a system where your thoughts are within you and nobody can read them unless you share them, because he wanted you to be a unique person. And he wants you. And you are valuable. And no one can take that away from you. Your individuality and your thoughts and God wanting you and knowing you and God always being with you, it's nothing of human currency that you can give and share and take away and that you can run out of and say no more and reject. So I invite you to think about that. Until next time.